Last night, while you slept, you saw someone who is dead. Maybe not last night, maybe a week ago, maybe a month. But at some point, your sleeping brain conjured a person who no longer exists, put them in a room, gave them a voice, and let you talk to them. You woke up and you knew they were gone. But for a few seconds, maybe longer, some part of you wasn't sure. Some part of you felt like you had been somewhere, like they had visited you. A 2023 Pew Research study found that 46% of American adults say they have been visited by a dead family member in a dream, not metaphorically, visited. And that feeling, that confusion between what is real and what the sleeping brain invents, may be the single most important experience in the entire history of human belief. Because before there was religion, before there were gods, before anyone had a word for soul, there were dreams. And dreams did something to early humans that no one was prepared for. Imagine being alive 80,000 years ago. You have no writing, no science, no framework for understanding what your brain does when you close your eyes. You fall asleep, and then you are somewhere else. You are running through a forest. You are standing by a river that doesn't exist near your camp. You are face to face with your mother, who died during the last wet season. She speaks to you. She warns you. And then you open your eyes, and you are lying on the ground in the dark, and she is not there. The question is not whether that experience would be confusing. The question is, what conclusion would you draw? Because in 1871, the British anthropologist Edward Burnett Tylor proposed an answer in his landmark work, Primitive Culture. He argued that the experience of dreaming was the origin of the human concept of the soul. His logic was brutally simple. Your body lies still while you sleep. But you go places, you see things, you meet people. The only explanation available to a pre-scientific mind is that there must be two of you, a body, and something else. Something that leaves the body and travels, something invisible, weightless, free. Tylor called it the doctrine of animism, the belief that all things contain a spirit, a vital force. And he believed it started with dreams. Friedrich Nietzsche came to the same conclusion independently, just a few years later, in 1880. In Human, All Too Human, he wrote one of the most haunting lines in philosophy. The dead live on, for they appear to the living in dreams. That was the conclusion one formerly drew throughout many millennia. Think about that. For tens of thousands of years, across every continent, separated by oceans and mountain ranges, and thousands of generations, human beings all arrived at the same interpretation. If I can see my dead father in a dream, he must still exist somewhere. He is in another place, a place I visit when I sleep. This was not superstition. This was the most logical conclusion available to a mind without neuroscience. In 2016, a team led by Hervey Peoples at the University of Auckland published a landmark study in the journal Human Nature. They used phylogenetic analysis on 33 hunter-gatherer societies from around the world to reconstruct the sequence in which religious beliefs likely evolved. The results were striking. Animism, the belief that natural things have a spirit or vital force, was the oldest trait. It was present in the most recent common ancestor of all living hunter-gatherer cultures, pushing its origin back at least 45,000 years. The second trait to emerge was belief in an afterlife. The third was shamanism, and the fourth was ancestor worship. In other words, the sequence went like this. First, humans came to believe that everything has a spirit. Then they came to believe that spirits survive death. Then, certain individuals, shamans, became specialists in traveling to the spirit world. And then the dead became objects of reverence. Each step builds on the one before, and every single step is consistent with what dreams would have taught you. There is something else your brain does during REM sleep that made this almost inevitable. Neuroscientist Patrick McNamara at Boston University has spent decades studying the overlap between dreams and religious experience. He points to 3 features of REM dreams that are unique among all states of consciousness. First, they are intensely relational. Your dreams are populated with characters who appear to have their own intentions, their own plans, their own knowledge. Second, they are hyper-emotional. The amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, is more active during REM sleep than during most waking activities. And third, they are dissociative. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for critical judgment and reality testing, goes nearly silent during REM. You cannot tell that you are dreaming. You cannot evaluate whether the person standing in front of you is real. Your brain accepts the dream as fact. In an ancient world, that combination is a God-manufacturing machine. McNamara describes what happens in the most intense REM episodes. A dream character can appear so powerful, so knowing, so far beyond the dreamer's control that it feels omniscient, omnipotent. The dreamer loses all sense of agency. The character takes over. When this character is hostile, you wake from what we call a nightmare, soaked in real sweat, heart rate spiking. When the character is benevolent, you wake with a feeling of having been touched by something sacred. In both cases, the experience feels more real than waking life. Not less. More. And for 99% of human history, there was no one to tell you it wasn't. This is where dreams and death begin to merge into something bigger than either one. The oldest known intentional human burial dates to roughly 100,000 years ago at Kafsa Cave in Israel. The bodies were positioned deliberately. They were stained with red ochre. And at Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq, archaeologist Ralph Selecki discovered in the 1950s that Neanderthals buried their dead roughly 65,000 years ago, with clusters of flower pollen surrounding the remains, as though someone had laid blossoms over the body. These are not random disposals. These are rituals, and rituals imply belief. Someone at Shanidar believed that death was not the end, that the person lying in the dirt had gone somewhere, and the most likely reason they believed that is because they had seen the dead return, in dream. The ancient Egyptians built an entire civilization around this idea. The papyrus Chester Beatty III, dating to approximately 1275 BCE during the reign of Ramses II, is one of the oldest known dream interpretation manuals. It catalogs hundreds of dream symbols and their meanings because to the Egyptians, dreams were not random. They were messages from deities and the dead. They practiced dream incubation, a ritual in which a person would sleep in a temple hoping for a divine dream, a direct visitation. The Greeks did the same. At the temples of Asclepius, the god of healing, the sick would sleep on stone floors, waiting for the god to appear in their dreams and reveal a cure. More than 300 of these temples existed across the ancient Greek world. You didn't go to the doctor, you went to sleep. But there is one culture that took this further than any other in recorded history, and their version of the idea may be the most disorienting to a modern mind. The Aboriginal Australians did not merely believe that dreams connected you to the spirit world, they believed that the spirit world dreamed you into existence. Their concept, often translated as the dreamtime or the dreaming, holds that ancestral beings dreamed the world into being, sculpting rivers and mountains and living creatures out of pure intention. And the dreaming is not something that happened long ago. It is happening right now. It is always happening. When you dream at night, you are not hallucinating. You are briefly stepping back into the foundational reality that everything else is built on. Your waking life is the shadow. The dream is the substance. That inversion, that the dream is more real than the waking world, is not an idea unique to Australia. It surfaces in traditions on every inhabited continent. The Quiche Maya of Central America regarded certain dreams as direct communications from sacred ancestors. The Tikopia of Polynesia believed spirit beings entered their sleeping minds to deliver messages. The Jivaro of South America built entire religious ceremonies around encounters that began in dreams. These are not isolated traditions. They are convergent conclusions drawn by thousands of separate cultures, all working from the same raw material, the nightly experience of leaving your body and entering a world that feels absolutely real. And here is what makes this personal. Your brain still does all of this. Every night. Your prefrontal cortex still goes quiet. Your amygdala still surges. You still encounter people and places that do not exist, and for those minutes, you believe in them completely. The machinery that invented the soul, that built the first religions, that created the afterlife, is running inside your skull right now. On the same ancient operating system it has used for 100,000 years. The only difference is that you wake up and call it a dream. You have a word for it. You have a framework. You know that the dead person you saw was not real. But tonight, when you close your eyes and someone you have lost walks into the room your sleeping brain has built for them, speaking in a voice you thought you had forgotten, there will be a moment, just a fraction of a second, where the oldest part of your mind does not know that. A fraction of a second where you are no different from a human being crouched in a cave 80,000 years ago, watching the dead return, drawing the only conclusion that makes sense. They are still here. They have always been here. And for 100,000 years, that was not a dream. It was the truth.